How's it going, everyone? Dozer here, and this is the first video in my series of videos that's going to go over this track called Drama Cursed. The instrumentals by Bobby Ruckus and Definite. And let me go ahead and play a little bit of that for you right now.
People say they're gonna do this and that, but where they at, it got your back when it goes bad. Wanna impress everyone around you. Wanna waste the time, man, cause in a few years they'll be long gone, you'll be less screwed. When the sunshine in my life, watch the clouds float by. It's some days in my mind, I be doing time. Often wonder where the hell I'm going. Am I gonna make it? Am I holding all the right calls? Maybe I should bet them all. And if I throw them up, it ain't nobody said lights, camera, action. I ain't gotta prove nothing living to nobody.
Alright, so if you want to hear the whole track, go ahead and go and check the description. There'll be a link to the exact track in the description. Now, these are all my vocals on this track, singing, rapping, and everything. Okay, so that's who the artist is. And we're basically going to go through, and this first video is going to talk about EQ, compression, and de-essing. The other videos will get into reverb and stuff like that, but we're going to talk specifically about the lead vocals. So what we're going to be focusing on in this tutorial is this lead vocal here, and only the lead vocal, and I'm going to play it. It has all the effects on right now. And solo it.
People say they're gonna do this and that.
All right, that's my voice. Now, then I have below that, I have some stress where I come in and add emphasis. Those are right here, those two.
People say they're gonna do this and that.
And then I have this one above that comes in during certain times, and I'm basically singing.
People say they're gonna do this and that.
And it adds like a little bit of effect to the background. And then down here, I have some repeats, which is where I repeat some things. You can call them ad-libs, whatever.
Goes bad. Wanna impress everyone.
These right here.
Goes bad. Wanna impress everyone around you. Wanna waste the time.
All right, but we're going to cover in this video the lead element. So on this lead track here, this track right here, if we open my inspector, is going out to a lead Vox bus, which means that these vocals are being sent out and coming in onto this lead Vox bus right here, lead Vox, and they're getting all their processing done from the bus. Now, if you don't know anything about buses and tracks and sends, I have a tutorial, free tutorial. It's like an hour long, goes from simple to advanced. It'll be in the description so you can learn about how that works so you're not lost. But basically, this track is going out to another bus. So let's listen to it raw right quick. It's going to be kind of low in volume because I have the compressor off.
People say they're gonna do this and that, but where they at it?
So that's my raw lead vocal. Let's go check out what kind of processing we're doing to it. So it's being sent to this lead Vox bus right here. And we're going to look at the EQ and the reverb that I got going on, as well as some de-essing. Now, something very important that you need to know is that the settings you're going to see on my EQ and my compressor and all that stuff, you can't really use that, because if you go take and use it in your system, it might work, but it probably isn't going to, because you would have to have my room, my microphone, my preamp, everything that I have in order for these settings that I chose for this song to work. And then you have to think about all of the instrumentation inside the song. This isn't going to be typical for another song. For another song with a different instrumental and different instruments, I'm going to use the different settings for EQ and compression. So all of this is being taken into context with the instrumental. So if you try and take my EQ settings, my compression settings, you might get by a little bit, but they're not going to work. However, the principles you can take. Something else you need to know for future reference is that all these vocal buses here that you see are going to this all Vox bus over here, where they have some EQ, they have some Kramer tape from Waves, they have some de-essing, they have some more EQ going on, and they're all being sent there. So just know that, as you can see, they're being sent to the all Vox bus. But I'm not going to have that turned on for the tutorial. I'll turn that on towards the end when we go over all Vox processing. All right, so first up is EQ. If you notice I have an EQ on all these vocal buses, I usually have an EQ first. Although this might be a different kind of EQ, it's still an EQ. I like doing a lot of my corrective EQ first, before I send it to my compressor. So what I do is I usually remove a lot of the low frequency stuff that, we don't really want to be sending to the compressor, so I'll turn that on. And as you can see, I have it bypassed right now. And when it's red, it's bypassed. When it's on, it's like that. So bypassed, active. So all I'm doing is basically, I got a high pass filter here, removing a lot of the lower frequencies. that I don't even really need go into my compressor. And basically what I'm doing with this compressor is I'm cleaning up a lot of the low-end mud. That's all I'm doing. So I'm going to play it with it bypassed, and then I'm going to bring it in, and you're going to hear what it's doing to the vocal.
People say they're gonna do this and that, but where they at, it got your back when it goes bad. Wanna impress everyone around you. What a waste of time, man, cause in a few years they'll be...
So it sounds like it's thinning it out a lot, and it's kind of thinning it out. That's basically what it's doing. It's getting rid of a lot of that low-frequency stuff that I found that I don't really need. So that's what that first EQ is doing. So when you're typically doing this kind of stuff, it's going to need to be tailored to your instrumental and all that kind of stuff, as I've already said. Next up is my compression. For compression, I'm using this Izotope Nectar compressor, and I'm only using the compression section. Of course, it's setting into mixing mode. And I'm going to cover this. I'm not going to go too in-depth. I'm going to have a separate video tutorial called Lead Vocal Thickness, and that's where this parallel portion is going to come in, but I am going to show it to you kind of briefly. So the compression, let's talk about the first one up here, not the parallel one, but just this single compressor up here. For those of you who don't know, compressor is basically an automatic turn downer, a leveler, so to say. It basically levels out the performance. So if you're talking like this right here and you're weaving in and out of the microphone, or you got some parts that are just louder when you're talking because you're rapping or whatever and you're adding life and dynamics, you might want to smooth those out a little bit so that the lower words are being brought up in line with the louder words, and so that the louder words are being brought down so they're not just so loud. You know what I mean? So basically compression. Let's see how much compression I'm getting.
People say they're gonna do this.
This is my input meter, and it's showing you how much the input is, but then the red is showing you the gain reduction. I'm getting like 10 decibels of reduction.
People say they're gonna do this and that, but where they at, it got your back when it goes bad. Wanna impress everyone around you. What a...
All right, so that's about the compression. This over here is just a transfer graph. Don't even worry about that. That's just for pretty looks. You can see the input
People say they're gonna...
and how much is getting compressed. I got it set into vintage mode. All right, I'm using a ratio of 4:1, specific for this track and only for these vocals and for this thing, because as I've already said, it's all going to be different with every track. I got auto gain on. I'm using a 2.3 millisecond attack time. Let's talk about attack real quick. And attack is basically how much time before the compressor is going to kick in. So I'm using a 2.3 millisecond because it's a lead vocal and I want my lead vocal to come through. So what you need to know about attack is with attack, I can shape the dynamics, and shaping the dynamics can change the apparent volume or the perceived volume of a vocal. What do I mean by that? Well, I can push something to the back of the mix by giving a really fast attack time. And what I'm telling the compressor to do is to immediately, almost immediately, start compressing the vocal and don't let anything come through really. None of the transient material, none of the first parts of the words, no part of the words. Basically compress every single part of the word, basically with a fast attack. Not being technical here. Now, as I lengthen the attack time, I'm allowing some of the syllables and some of the parts of the word to come out more evident. So what this will do is it'll make it seem a little bit louder, a little bit closer, a little bit more apparent to you compared to everything else in the mix. So compared to your snare and your hi-hats and the snap of the kick drum and all this other kind of stuff, I can bring my vocals more forward in the mix by using a slower attack time. Again, if I want to push something to the back, I'll use a fast attack time, which is basically going to smooth over all the transients and make it appear to seem farther back. I use that on a background vocal. This is the milliseconds that I chose on this specific instance. The release, I'm not going to get too in-depth in that, but just know that the release is when the compressor is going to release. Since there's a lot of words, I'm going to break this down real simple, but this isn't really how it worked out. But since there's a lot of words happening in this rap, I need compression to be letting go and compressing really fast, okay, so that it can follow the waveform and basically compress certain things and leave other things alone that don't really need to be compressed. So basically what's going to happen is as it releases, you know how everything that was loud was getting turned down and anything that was low was getting turned up because I have auto gain turned on? Well, what's happening is when the compression goes away, anything that's quiet is kind of being brought up for just a split second, you know, for 71 milliseconds. But by that time, compression is already kicking in again. So, again, this isn't a compression tutorial. I have a mixing DVD that covers that real in-depth like a scientist. Just know that that's what I chose for this thing here. Again, I'm using the vintage algorithm, which has probably added some kind of saturation. I have not analyzed this plugin, but if I did, it probably shows some saturation, and it's probably tailoring the attack and release parameters and other things. I have auto gain on, just to add some gain. Now, on my lead Vox bus here, I do a lot of my gain staging off my compressor that's on the track. So as you can see, I have this right here turned up to plus 7.3. I brought the levels, the output, up to 7.3 to get it within range, and then I do my final tweaking with this. But within the plugin, I have increased it. So let's move on. Now this parallel part is actually adding some thickness, and so what it's really doing is some parallel compression, and it's adding more compression, but I'm also modifying it with this filter here to add some warmth, because I'm getting rid of a lot of the high frequencies, and I got a really short attack time, and I got an RMS, so basically I'm affecting the macro dynamics, not really the micro dynamics of the vocal. Auto gain's on, and with this slider I'm able to bounce between the two compressors. I will cover this section more in my other tutorial that's going to be added to the series, thickening lead vocals. But I'm going to go ahead and play it and kind of let you see what's happening here.
People say they're gonna do this and that, but where they at, it got your back when...
Got 13 decibels of reduction over here, and then over here I'm able to do the balance between these two compressors.
People say they're gonna do this.
Up top is just this compressor, but when I bring it down, it's this compressor down here. But I'm doing a mixture of both, and mixing both of them with this one and this one creates a warm sound for specific functions.
People say they're gonna do this and that, but where they at, it got your back when it goes bad. Wanna impress everyone.
And I'll cover that again, like I said, in that thickening tutorial, lead vocal thickening. All right, so up next we got this third EQ here. It's right after the compressor. Let's check that out. So what do we got going on here? Well, this is notch filtering. What I'm doing here is I'm removing frequencies that I find offending. And you can't copy these settings because this is typical for my voice, for my room, for my microphone. And these are ones that I found in my studio monitoring setup. It is set up professionally by me because I know how to do measurement software. I have a measurement microphone. I measure my room, waterfall plots, ETC, RT60 time, all that stuff. You always want to use your studio as your main source of decision-making process. Why am I telling you that? Well, because guess what? I also take my mix and I put it on my laptop. And I take my laptop out to my speakers in my car, my truck, and I also listen to the other playback systems like this big old stereo system I have behind me. And I might find other offending frequencies and I will reduce those as well. And what I'm doing is I'm basically notching out frequencies that I find that are too harsh on the ear or maybe are ringing or something like that. Now, I'm going to show you how I find those, but before I do, let me give you a demonstration real quick. I'm going to have to exaggerate this because a lot of you are listening on laptop speakers or maybe some cheap headphones, and maybe some of you are listening on some high-fidelity stuff. I don't know. But you want to be able to hear it, and some of you may not even hear this, what's happening. So I'm going to play the lead vocal. It's bypassed right now, but then I'm going to enable it, and you'll hear how some of that offending harshness goes away.
Lord, please help me when I make these choices. Hope somebody help me, I don't want to remain voiceless. Feeling disappointed, annoyed, it will poison, ignore, and destroy the annoying voices. Enjoy the voyage, don't let it be pointless.
All right, so I exaggerated. Some of you probably heard what happened there. There's this little boxy sound around 500. There's some other stuff happening here, and in the high frequency that I was able to remove that was kind of offending. Now, how do you go about doing this? Well, first off, what I do is I bring in this EQ because I know I'm going to be doing some of this stuff, some of this subtractive EQ, correction, notch filtering. And what I'm going to do is I am going to not have anything on. There's not going to be an EQ. And I'm going to listen to the lead vocal by itself first, okay? Just by itself. And then I'm going to bring the instrumental in. But I'm going to make sure I have my compression, I have the gain staging set up properly. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to listen. And I'm going to listen to it and start to listen for frequencies that I don't think that need to be there that are kind of annoying. And then I'm also going to solo the vocal, but mainly with the instrumental going. And then I'm going to start listening. So I'm using my ear first, and I already know generally around where those frequencies are because I know how to do EQ, and I've trained myself with EQ. So you might want to do some ear training with EQ on your own. And I'm basically going to start fishing for them. I'm going to start listening.
Lord, please help me when I make these choices. Hope somebody help me, I don't want to remain
And though I don't recommend using your eyes, but I can look at the FFT graph and basically verify that, yeah, around that area there is a really big buildup of frequency. So look around this area right here.
Lord, please help me when I make these choices.
Now that might be kind of hard to see because of the timing and the frames per second of this video tutorial, which I think is like 30 or something like that. But there's a little
Lord, please help me when I make
peak right
these
here and
choices.
right here.
Hope somebody help me. I don't want.
So I could see that, yeah, there's a lot of energy there, but, you know, that doesn't mean that there's something wrong. So what I'm saying is you can use your eyes a little bit, but I use them to verify certain things. Now I'm going to use my ears.
Lord, please help me when I make these choices. Hope somebody help me. I don't want to remain voiceless. Feeling disappointed, annoyed, it will poison, ignore, and destroy the annoying voices. Enjoy the voyage, don't let it be pointless.
So right around here, I'm getting like some ringing, and I'm going to go ahead and bring that down. And I did the same thing with the other ones. I found some ringing frequencies.
Lord, please help me when.
So what you do is you search for your frequency. When you find it, you let go, and then you decrease the gain while you're listening. That's how you do some notch filtering.
Lord, please help me when I make these choices. Hope somebody help me. I don't want to remain voiceless. Feeling disappointed, annoyed, it will poison, ignore, and destroy the.
Now, you don't want to sit here and just listen for ringing, because guess what? I can find ringing all over the place. If you increase just with a sharp cue like this, with a sharp bandwidth, a lot of frequencies, you can get a lot of ringing sounds, all right? So that's not what I'm really doing. I'm not really listening for ringing. I can hear the ringing without any EQ. I hear it. That's why I'm able to make my decisions. So here's a little tip that I thought I'd give you guys on some EQ. I kind of went a little bit too in-depth on this. And some of you are probably like, man, you ain't going in-depth enough. But we're going to move on to the other things. Just know that with this, I did do some tweaking on some sections that I thought needed it. And I don't remember where they were, but we'll just, since it's not really going to affect this tutorial, I'll just throw some in there, okay? Actually, we'll just find some real quick and then I'll...
Lord, please help me when I make these choices. Hope somebody help me. I don't want to remain voiceless. Feeling disappointed, annoyed, it will poison, ignore, and destroy the annoying voices. Enjoy the voyage, don't let it be pointless. Will we join in heaven? Hell seems avoidless. Lord, please help me when I make these...
All right, so I'll do that. That's because I'm using my headphones right now, so there we go. Let's move on to the de-essing. All right, so here's some de-essing. And what we're going to do is we're going to cover, basically just kind of go into the de-esser here. I'm using the Waves de-esser, and I'm going to show you the portion of the vocal that I have set up here. I'm going to set up a loop. And basically what I want to happen is I want this thing to compress. What's basically happening is this is a frequency-specific compressor. It's only going to compress above a certain frequency whenever there's S sounds. That's what it's going to do. A lot of you already know what a de-esser is, but some of you don't. So basically it's de-essing. Get rid of a lot of that S sound because it's just too harsh.
You'll be less screwed. Wonder where your life at, what you went through.
So screwed and then the F and F, life.
You'll be less screwed. Wonder where your life at, what you went through.
What ch went through. So ch and th and f and, you know, all those sounds are going to get turned down. So how do you set a de-esser? Well, there's a couple million different ways. So I'm just going to show you how I set this one up, okay? Because there's many ways to do it. So here's how I set it up. I find a portion like this portion that you see here, and I turn my sidechain on. I have the de-esser bypassed.
You'll be less screwed.
And I listen, and I kind of listen for where the S is at. Now, if the S is covering a wide range of frequencies like these are, I'm just going to use a high-pass filter, okay? You can also use the bandpass and get more specific if you want to be less intrusive. If you add a high pass like this one, this is going to basically cut down all frequencies above 5100 that are going above this set threshold level are going to get compressed. Only the frequencies, though, above that. So a lot of the lower frequencies aren't going to be affected. Well, when you're using a high pass filter like this inside this de-esser, it can kind of warm up the sound or kind of deaden the sound, get rid of some of those high frequencies. But you can always add them back, the ones that you want, with an EQ. So even though I'm kind of killing the vocal with using this high-pass filter method for de-essing, I can always go back later and add some of those frequencies back with EQ if I feel I need to, which I do later on the all-Vox bus, which we'll get to later. So let's check this out. I set my sidechain on and I listen.
You'll be less screwed.
Turn this on. Now all I'm hearing is the S. With the sidechain, you only hear the sidechain or the part that's getting de-essed. So what's happening here? Let's turn this back to audio. What I did was I went around. This is typical. Now, this is something you could use for yourself. I'm going to tell you right now. What you see on your screen, you could set this plugin to around 5100, and do what I'm about to show you, and you can be set on de-essing. Point blank. You can do that if you want. But if you want to be less intrusive, you have more of an intimate vocal, and it's not really a rap vocal, you might want to be more specific and tailor that differently. So let's check this out.
You'll be less screwed.
Screwed is going to cause de-essing, which is, you see the ATTEN, it's going to attenuate the level of those frequencies of the S word.
You'll be less screwed.
Screwed.
You'll be less screwed.
You see that? I'm getting almost negative 12 decibels. I'm getting a lot of de-essing going on here, right? And we can hear that. You see what I'm saying? Now, if you want to be even more and you want to just tailor it more specific, you do this. I'll set my loop point on the S word only, which is right here. Here's the S. Right? Now, I'm only listening to the side chain.
You'll be less.
There's the S, right? I could bust out my side chain, put this in the bandpass mode if you want to be more specific, and now I can start searching for the frequencies. You can do this two ways. I use my ears, but you can also use your eyes. Watch this. So what I'm doing right now is I'm watching this, and you see the reduction at this frequency? It's reducing, but watch this when I bring it up. There's only like 3 decibels, right? So that's not really that offending. The more reduction you get, that means the more of that frequency at that S there is. So around the center point, which is the center of this bandpass, the bandpass filter only allows a certain range of frequencies. I don't know what the decibels per octave roll off on both sides of this filter are. Just know that this is the center frequency. Starting to get more there. More. And of course, the more you bring it down, the more you're going to get. But as we get down to here, it's going to start, there's not really much S around the 2000 frequency range. So that's why I'm telling you around here, when the S's start coming in, you can set it for that and go for high pass. All right. But if I wanted to be a specific frequency that I didn't like, let me stop that. I could tailor this by listening and using my ears for that S sound that I want. And I can even go on a S word and start making sure I'm verifying by using my side chain to find the frequency I want to remove. Say if it's right there, I could set it for that, go like that.
You'll be less.
And then take off this.
You'll be less screwed. Wonder where your life at.
And now I've removed some of the S. But like I said, if you just want to set it and leave it, point blank, this is basically a general de-esser setting right there. I'm using split mode, and basically how you want to set this level now is words that don't have an S, you don't, or those type of sounds, you don't want to be letting this compress them or letting it de-ess them. So how you do that?
Oh, gone, you'll be less screwed.
Let's turn, okay, that's off.
Oh, gone, you'll be less screwed.
So you notice,
oh, gone, you'll be less.
Long gone, there's not much. But then when it gets to the screwed, you can see I'm getting reduction. So you want to set this.
Oh, gone, you'll be less screwed.
To where the words that don't have S's are not being compressed.
Oh, gone, you'll be less screwed. Wonder where your life at. What you.
And only on words where it's like the F and the and all those words, the compressor kicks in. So this is all happening real fast in my mind, and it would be happening fast in your mind. As you're watching it, you're watching this go up and down, but you're listening to the words and you're listening for S's, and I'm listening for words that don't have S's and making sure that they fall below this threshold so they aren't getting compressed.
Oh, gone, you'll be less screwed. Wonder where your life at. What you. Oh, gone, you'll be.
Wonder where your life, right there. Wonder where your. That's all should not be getting compressed. I don't want that to.
Wonder where your life at.
Because there's not really any S's in that.
Wonder where your life at.
Now, once it gets to in life, it's probably going to kick in.
Wonder where your life at. What you win.
And that's how I'm tailoring and setting my adjustment for my de-essing. So there you go, some tips on de-essing real quick. I could have done a whole separate video on this, which I probably should have, but I can go real in-depth on de-essing because this doesn't even scratch the surface. There's de-essers that do some crazy stuff. And you can also use de-essing on whole mixes. You can use them mid-side. You can do all kinds of crazy stuff with anything. But I just thought I'd throw in a couple tips for you.
Wonder where your life at. What you went through.
So that's what I'm using for de-essing.